What's something you did when you were younger that haunts you to this day? At church camp one year, I really had to go poop. I rushed back to our bunkhouse and ran to the bathroom. As I'm pulling my pants down, I feel the poo come shooting out and realize I missed the toilet. I hit the lid and directly to the side. I was so terrified that someone would find me in there and be ridiculed for life that I bolted without cleaning it up or anything. I was wearing my favorite hat that I had been wearing all of camp, which was a Mighty Ducks hat from the cartoon, not the live action movies. That hat apparently fell into the pooey mess and I didn't realize it in my terror. A little bit later, the whole group came to the bunks and found the mess. It caused a massive uproar, as you can imagine, with 40 plus 10-year-olds. Then, someone discovers my hat in the aftermath. To this day I'm still shocked that the connection wasn't made by the kids. I played it off as total shock that someone would take my hat and poop on it or throw it in the mess. From my memory, all the kids bought the lie. They were also under the impression someone sabotaged my favorite hat and got away with it. I verified this story recently with one of my childhood best friends that was there. He had no idea it was me who did that. We had a pretty good laugh about it, but that moment haunted me for years. I think my favorite part is that you clarified the type of Mighty Ducks hat. My mum went out briefly, so I shut myself in my bedroom, took off all my clothes and started dancing crazily in front of the mirror. Think Groucho Marx in the mirror scene. Quick step, straight arms flailing out in jubilation. But, you know, naked. I'm not sure why. I was 11 and I believe I had my reasons at the time. It all went fine. And I heard the front door signaling my mum's return, so I stopped and redressed and started doing normal stuff again, albeit with somewhat flushed cheeks from my exertions. That was when she came up to my room to gently tell me I was clearly visible from the road. My full-length mirror was right next to the window, and my room was at the front of the house. I was in elementary school and my father completely shaved off his beard and mustache one night. When he came in to wake up my sister and me to get ready for school, I didn't recognize him at all. My solution to having a stranger in my room was to quietly go into my closet and shut the door. They still laugh about that one, but come on, who makes such a drastic change overnight and doesn't tell their kids? My daughter is an infant now and I keep a beard. I always wonder if she'd think I was a stranger if I shaved it off. When I was in high school, in one of my classes towards the end of the year, we had a little potluck of sorts, where kids could bring baked goods or whatever and chit chat and relax after finals week. One girl had brought a tray of cookies with dips in the middle. In the middle sat what were probably dollops of chocolate ganache. They looked real good. So good, in fact, that I turned to my friend to make some crazy hyperbolic statement about them to make him laugh. Being a genius, I went with, "Those look disgustingly good," whatever that was supposed to mean. Also being a genius, I hadn't noticed that the girl who baked them was standing on my other side. When I turned to look at her, it was obvious all she had heard was me emphasizing the word disgusting. She looked devastated. I tried my best to explain what I had actually said, but since the truth sounded exactly like a lame attempt at a lie, I just had to accept my cookie in shame. It was something like 15 years ago, and it still haunts me to this day. If you're reading this, I swear the cookies actually looked really good. In my early teens I used to jerk it on the bed all the time. My bed had a loose board on the headboard that would kind of make this clacking sound to my stroking. As a naive child, I assumed nobody could hear it. Turns out everybody, my older sisters, my mom, dad, and even my aunt who stayed with us a lot, heard me jerking off all the time and knew exactly what was going on. I learned this about 4 years after moving out when we all got together and got drunk one night, and on my way up to the bedroom I drunk. But mom goes, "We don't want to hear that headboard clanking tonight or you're going to be washing those sheets." Everyone laughed. I was like, what, and then thought about it all night. Nobody acknowledged it at breakfast. Good god, that was awful. That's hilarious. I would have turned so freaking red if I had been in your shoes. I've always been really self-conscious and shy. Back in grade school it was my turn for show and tell. I didn't think I was good enough to show anything, so I of course asked my mom what I should do. I'd been playing with a toy harmonica a lot, My favorite thing to do was play guess the song with mom, so I could tell if I was improving. She suggested I bring in my harmonica and play guess the song for the class. Well crap, I'm actually good at this. I'll do it. So I get to class and I say we're going to play a game. I will play a song on my harmonica. You guys tell me what song it is. Kids were so hype, you guys. Visions of friends and acceptance danced in my head. I walked to the middle of the circle so excited. I was going to crush. Okay, here we go. I blew into the thing like my life depended on it. I freaking John Poppered it, you guys. I must have gone 45 seconds before the teacher waved me off and said great job. Nobody could guess the song. But, Old MacDonald? Come on, I can do another one. Nothing. The teacher said my turn was up. There would be no second song. I walked back to my seat so humiliated. Turns out my mom had learned to guess Old MacDonald, because that's what I always said I'd been playing. I guess she wanted to encourage me. Why she sent me into class not knowing how to fricking play harmonica is another question. I cringe to this day. I am not sure my social life recovered until college. I was homeschooled when I was younger, and didn't really interact with kids my age until I started public high school in 9th grade. I desperately wanted to fit in and be seen as funny and cool, so when I noticed that yo mama jokes seemed to get people laughing, I sprung on the opportunity to roast someone's mother and solidify myself as an edgy comedy genius. One day, armed with an arsenal of yo mama jokes I had looked up online the night before, I smugly turned to my brand new friend John and said yo mama so old. I told her to act her age and she died instantly. The group fell silent, and John looked intensely uncomfortable. But then his face lit up and he put his arm around me and said that was a good one. Cogdis88 with a genuinely kind smile on his face. It was only later that day that someone pulled me aside and explained that John's mom had passed away from ovarian cancer a month earlier, and that it's hard for him to think about or talk about her death. I was mortified, and the fact that John responded with sincere kindness instead of publicly calling me out made me feel even worse. John was an awesome guy, and I still wish there was some not weird way to go back and apologize to him about that. Maybe he acted so kindly towards you because people around him were acting awkwardly about his mother's death, not knowing what to say. That seems to happen a lot when people are grieving and need their friends. Their friends avoid them because they don't know what to say. Maybe you helped him by breaking the ice. I was walking down a beach with my mom and picked up a tampon and called her over and told her I found a water dropper. She yelled in terror for me to put it down, but it was too late. My family now refers to that beach as Tampon Beach. I don't use plastic tampon applicators in part because of how often I see them on beaches. I had to use some in high school once because that's all the school nurse had, and it was an emergency, and they were much more comfortable than the cardboard ones. But I felt bad thinking about the beach, and it's only like a 5-second difference anyway. As a young lady, maybe 6, I tried to pee like a boy, unsuccessfully, and pee all over the floor, left the pee, and blamed it on the cat. My mom knew it was me. I'm 21 now, still haven't lived it down. My sister did a similar thing and blamed it on the dog. We didn't have a dog. Here's a seriously fricked up one. When I was in middle school, my older sister liked to collect dead animals and put them in hydrogen peroxide to keep the skeletons. One day she had a high school lab where they dissected cats, like fully grown adult cats. Well, my sister apparently really wanted a cat skull to put in her room because she asked for my help without telling me what I was doing. I'm still haunted often by the memory of my sister handing me a pair of scissors and telling me to cut the head off of one of the bodies only to mess it up and have to do it again. Now whenever I pet one of our cats, I very often have the urge to throw up because I'm reminded of how it felt to cut through a spine with a pair of cheap scissors. My brother and I had the talk when I was in 1st grade. He was older than me and tells me everything, so it had to happen to both of us. My dad was explaining it, in probably more detail than a 1st grader should get, and I asked can we practice with our butts, and he freaked out. Then he explained it as you find a mommy and you have a baby with a mommy. I went downstairs and cried to my mom saying I couldn't do that to her. I cringe so much, and my family brings it up so much. Hey, at least you didn't run to tell her that you wanted to do that to her. Me and my friend Dylan Ding Dong ditched this old lady. Except that we didn't ditch. We just stood there, and then when she answered the door, I threw a dead bird at her. I might be a bad person, but I can't help laughing at this. I wanted to be a cat, so when I was 4 my mom put my food and water in bowls on the floor for a day or 2. She had to put an end to it when she caught me taking a crap in the cat's litter box. She still brings it up after a glass or 2 of wine. I was a very outdoorsy kid, and I was playing in the dirt while my aunt was gardening. I picked aside around 6 worms, and my aunt commented that they'd burn to a crisp. I was horrified, so naturally, I shoved them all into my mouth and ate them all. My aunt was screaming and asking why the heck I did that, and apparently my answer was that they'd be safe in my tummy. This still comes up at family dinners and I've never been able to live that crap down. Edit. Who knew worms would pop my golden cherry? Thank you, kind worm. Edit 2. Till that worms have apparently been a diet for quite a few naive children besides myself. Hey everyone, you trash TM eats worms. Ha 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 ha. I once ate some roly-polies. I was at this like women's health fair at a museum when I was 12 and I was walking to all the booth and picking up the free things. They had like toothbrushes, stickers, cheap necklaces, candy, etc. At one booth I picked up what I thought must have been a foil packet of sample lotion or something. I didn't think much of it. The woman running the booth sees me and gently asks how old I am and I tell her. Clearly trying to embarrass me, she says she doesn't think I need those. I ask why not and she tells me they are condoms. I stare at the packet in my hand horrified, throw it on the table, and literally bolt. It'd be a real shame if she'd done that to a 12-year-old who was in a situation where she did need the free condoms. TBH. Not like it doesn't happen. My grandma had a very nice set of tiny teacups. They were extremely little, even hard to grab for my 3-4-year-old fingers. While everybody in the house was napping on a lovely Sunday afternoon, I decided it would be a good idea to pee in the teacups. I went to the bathroom, peed in all of them, stayed there playing with the teacups. Then I emptied them but didn't wash them or clean them and put them back into its place. On a lovely Sunday afternoon I decided it would be a good idea to pee in the teacups. The mind of a child is a thing of wonder. I once said to my mom's boss as a kid, "So you're the one my mom has to suck up to." I thought I was being funny. I was not. My mom's boss when we were little was incredibly fat. My autistic 6-year-old brother would scream oink oink whenever he walked by, no matter how many times we tried to shush him. My parents took me and a friend of mine to a flea market. My friend and I were browsing a stand and I saw a really nice quill that I wanted to buy with my pocket money. I asked the dude how much it was and I thought he answered something like, "You can't afford that." I said okay, then keep it and walked away. My friend asked me why I did that and was confused. I asked her what she meant and she explained that he said I could just have it for free. I don't know how I could misunderstand that, but I felt so bad about my reaction in the new context, and still do. Sorry sir, I respect the principles of the free market too much to accept this handout. I stole $2 from my dad's wallet when I was 10 years old just so I have more pocket money for school that day. His wallet had only $6. I later realized my dad was not doing well financially at the point of time and was struggling to get by. But you know, if you asked your dad for that $2, he would have given it to you. Alright, buckle up buckaroos. I guess I was about 12 at the time. I had discovered masturbation the year before and obviously it had become by far my favorite thing. But what was new to me was the act of masturbating with lubricant. It was accidental, really, much the same as the first time I jerked it to completion and realized how much better that was than just kind of playing with it. Jerking off with lube blew my mind. Problem is the lube I discovered it with was soap. Now, if you've ever jerked off with soap and overdone it, you know that the skin gets dry. And to say I overdid it would be like saying tacos are pretty good. In reality, that night in the shower I beat my dong like it had stolen from me. The consequences of this, however, didn't show up until the next day, and didn't reach their peak until the day after. And this was in the midst of riding 6 hours in the car with my mom to visit my sister who was having brain surgery. My penis was so dry it was shiny, and spiderwebbed with scabs. Mom finally asked me in the hospital why I kept going to the bathroom. I was putting water on it to try and calm the burning and itching. And when I described it to her, she then asked my aunt, who was a nurse, about it. They decided as a pair that I had a yeast infection. This is also how I discovered that one of my male cousins frequently got yeast infections on his dong as an adolescent. So mom got me some anti-itch cream. And when she told dad about it, he said it was probably the new laundry detergent we had used because his dong was shiny too. I still don't know if he was covering for me or if he had also jacked off with soap or what. TL. Dr jerked off with soap as a 12-year-old and way overdid it. Resulting shiny scabby penis convinced my mom I had a yeast infection. LOL, that's hilarious. I jacked off with Vaseline. Have to go slow since it's not the best lube. But my dong swelled up the next day. I was too scared to tell my mom, so I stupidly waited it out. It went away but freaked me out so bad. It looked like a lopsided balloon. Brought my 6th day present to school to show it off. Was a geode with a wizard and tower on it. So in my excitement I forgot my lunch, and come lunchtime I was starving and ended up trading my gift for a tuna sandwich. Regretted it to this day that I gave away a gift when I could have just waited a few hours to eat. It feels like some grown up should have fixed that. If my kid came home with a random awesome wizard geode, I'd find out where they got it from and double check with the other kid's parents. All the stuff I broke being young and stupid. My grandpa gave me this cool old straight razor when I was 14 or 15. I marveled at how sharp it was and thought I would go test it out. I took it up in the woods and started cutting twigs or something with it and broke a big chunk out of the blade, completely ruining it. So dumb. Ugh. When I was 10 I asked for a GBA for my birthday. My mistake was that in my haste I hadn't mentioned what game I wanted to play on it. My dad ended up getting me some arcade shooter for it and I told him that I didn't want like it. When I told him, he responded with, "Oh, it looked really good to me," in one of the most hurt tones I have ever heard him use. I know he probably doesn't remember it, but every time I think about it, which is often, I feel like garbage. Just typing this makes me want to cry. It's the one thing I wish I could go back and change if given the chance. I know it probably doesn't seem that bad to everyone else, but my dad is one of the toughest sobs I know, so knowing that I hurt his feelings hurts me a lot. I did something similar when I was like 12. I asked for a certain remote control robot dinosaur for Christmas. My stepdad got me a robot dinosaur, but it was just a wind-up toy. I said something like it doesn't have remote control. It just walks, and saw how disappointed he was with my reaction. I still feel really bad for that. It was a cool toy and I wish I still had it. How mean I was to a little cousin of mine. Her eldest sister and I are the same age and we'd not want to play with the baby when we were 7 and she was 4, and there would be no other adults in the house for hours because her mother was off doing whatever or drinking off a hangover. I'd let her sister basically lock her in her room or the bathroom and just forget about her. I haven't spoken to her in 5 years and all I know is she assumes I'm the same kind of shithead as the rest of our family is, so I'm hesitant to contact her and really don't even know how. Of course you can't go back in time and undo anything, but I think it'd give her some closure and make her feel a little better if she knew how terrible you felt. If you get the opportunity, you should reach out. I was really boy crazy, and it was at its all-time height when I was in middle school. So all the weird, creepy stalking is pretty cringy to think about. Like making sure I just so happened to walk by doors as they got out of class or by the lockers. But thinking back on the phone calls, because my friends were just as bad, so we all had way too much support from each other to call these guys from whoever's house we were at landline. Sometimes they were prank calls. Sometimes we try and talk to them. Sometimes we got yelled at by parents on the other end. Ugh. I remember doing all that stuff. Haha. I'm a mom of middle school boys now and realize all those boys were probably totally clueless as to what was going on. Hoo boy, here we go. Alright, so when I was about 11, I was diagnosed with celiac. That meant I couldn't, and still can't, eat anything with gluten in it. With that said, It made eating out anywhere besides my house and a select few places kind of awkward, especially because I was a picky little crap to start with. About a month or two into my new diet, I was invited to a friend's house for his birthday party. When I got there, I found out they had talked with my dad and made me a gluten-free pot of mac and cheese. That would have been great except for the fact that 11-year-old me hated mac and cheese. I remember trying to fake eating some while my friend's mom was watching, but I eventually just gave up and avoided the plate and her entirely. I essentially left an entire pot of mac and cheese made specifically for me alone. And just in case somebody isn't aware, gluten-free substitutes aren't cheap. The moment that still sticks with me nearly 10 years later is his mom looking at the pot and going, "What am I going to do with all this?" Still makes me cringe at night thinking about it. I think of my life in terms of before leaving hometown and after leaving hometown at 13. Before leaving my hometown, I had a crush on any girl that would give me the time of day. I cried over it. I'd write cryptic and, in hindsight, creepy secret admirer notes and sneak them into my current crush's desk. I remember having a moment of clarity one day and tried to steal a note back before the girl could read it, but another friend stopped me and said I couldn't just go through a girl's bag because of, and she whispered it, "Pards." So she ended up finding the note and getting understandably creeped out. When I moved away from my hometown, I found a good solid circle of friends and stopped having crushes on everyone. I think it really came down to me not having that many real friends or knowing how to be friends with the opposite sex. But man, those notes. I really hope my childhood friends and crushes have long forgotten about me. Whispered it, Pards. My boyfriend is 27 years old and still has to whisper Pards. When I was around 6 or so, my dad shaved his beard for the first time. He has a brother, and his brother is skinnier than my dad. My dad's not a huge guy, just a little bigger than his brother. Anyways, she shaved. I saw his face and laughed at him saying, "You're like a fat uncle." He was laughing along. But now that I look back to it, it was hurting his feelings. I doubt it hurt his feelings. He knew he was fatter than his brother and I can't imagine he was hurt by that comment. He probably did think it was funny. I was at my friend's house. I'm a guy, she's a girl. My friend and I are both 13 at the time, as were most of our friends. So on this particular day we were hanging out and jumping on the trampoline and stuff, and it's really hot and we wanted to go in the pool. I unfortunately forgot to bring a bathing suit with me. Ugh, I'm cringing just writing this. Anyways, she offers to let me borrow one of her shorts so I could go in the pool. I didn't care because she was a tomboy anyway, so her shorts will probably resemble boys' shorts. So she gives me these shorts to put on, and I don't know why it didn't cross anyone's mind that this would be a problem, but the shorts were completely white. And since I didn't have a change of underwear, I went commando in those things. So we go in the pool, we're playing pool basketball and everything is fine. Then someone knocks the basketball out of the pool, so I go to get it, still not thinking about it. I get out of the pool and all of a sudden I hear UHH Lamela 0622, and then it hit me. My half pubescent body is completely exposed for everyone to see. I immediately covered my little wing wang, but it was already too late. I jumped back in the pool and made everyone get out and go inside until I toweled off and changed. I was so mortified at the time, but 10 years later it's pretty funny to think about and how none of us anticipated the problem. We don't speak about the incident, but every once in a while when I see my friend, we are still great friends, one of us will mention the story and know exactly what we're talking about. TLDR. Wore my female friend's white shorts commando in the pool and exposed my 13-year-old body to everyone. TBH, that doesn't sound like a big deal, lol. When I was in 4th grade, I made it to the final round of my school's Geography B and had the chance to beat one of the 5th graders, thereby proving that I was the smartest kid in my elementary school. The question I received was, "What is the capital of Washington?" Of course, I confidently yelled, "Seattle," and then immediately after realized my mistake. I'm still haunted by that missed opportunity. For further clarification, I've never lived in Washington state, but grew up in a neighboring state, so I felt like I should have known the answer because of proximity. My shame was magnified by the fact that this happened in the spring of 2001. Just a couple of months after an earthquake had cracked the dome of the Capitol building in Olympia. Plus, I was the kind of kid who cared about Geography B, so I had tried to memorize all the state capitals. I knew the right answer but I cracked under the pressure. Yay, don't worry about it dude. In 4th grade, I wrote down Chinatown as the capital of China. I ditched my best friend in 5th grade when she started acting weird and withdrawn. And since I was a queen bee in a very small private school, she was ruthlessly mocked and ostracized. Years later, I learned her behavior had been triggered by the fact that her father was raping her. I've never forgiven myself. When I was around 3 years old, I was staying at my grandma's house and she had a friend over. She is a social butterfly and was talking to her friend for hours on end, aka an eternity for a 3-year-old. And I eventually got really antsy and wanted her to pay attention to play with me. When I decided I had had enough as she was standing in the kitchen still talking, I came up behind her and bit her on the butt cheek. I think she had a red teeth mark for weeks. 25 years later, my grandma is now 93 years old and this story still comes up at every Thanksgiving and Christmas dinner. That actually made me laugh out loud, just imagining her minding her own business and getting bit on the butt by a furious small child out of nowhere. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.